is extremely important because these undercover videos are harmful to the farm owners where these videos are taped, the farm families that work those farms day in and day out, and the animal agriculture industry truly as a whole. And these videos damage their reputations. They bring harsh criticism, and many of these videos have found no legitimate instances of abuse, but rather use manipulated footage. They show false narrative of the image.
Shortly. So we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Youth Council Member Landgraf can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can have next we have approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda as presented, council members?
I have none, Mr. Mayor.
I have none.
None, Mr. Mayor. Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to approval of the minutes, the meeting minutes of March 12th, 2013. Is there any question to those minutes as prepared?
None, Mr. Mayor.
None, Mr. Mayor.
None, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to the meeting minutes of March 14th, 2013. Any questions to those meeting minutes as presented?
I have none,
None,
Mr. Mayor.
None, Mr. Mayor. Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to item 6A, appointments, awards and recognitions. This time, if I can call Mr. Michael Landgraf to the podium, please. This time, I'd like to, many of you last meeting met Mr. Landgraf. Today is the official appointment, so I'd like to read to you this appointment. When we were council members, Councilmember Abeta and I, we created along with Mayor Duran and the rest of the council, we created the youth council member. And the youth council member is intended to provide, so that you could become a liaison to issues that affect the youth and bring them to all the policymakers and see how we can continue supporting our youth. So we look forward to your leadership. When I interviewed you, I was very impressed with your articulation and your dynamics on how you want to address issues. So we look forward for you bringing up those issues that affect our youth in our community. So at this time, I'd like to read the appointment as follows. The town of Taos, to all whom these present may come, greetings and oye, that the mayor of the town of Taos, New Mexico, by virtue of the authority vested in that office and the laws of the town of Taos, reposing special trust and confidence in Michael Landgraf, does hereby constitute and appoint him as youth council member, in testimony whereof the town of Taos has caused these present to be signed by the mayor of the town of Taos, the town manager, under the seal of the town of Taos, New Mexico, at the regular council meeting of the governing body of the town of Taos on this 9th day of April 2013, signed office of the mayor and town manager Oscar Rodriguez. At this time, council members, this is my appointment to the youth council member. As a youth council member, I would entertain a motion to ratify that appointment.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Welcome to the town council. Thank you. Also welcome your parents. Would you like to introduce your parents and your family?
Yeah, sure. This is my mom. This is my mom, Terry Landgraf, and my sisters, Zoe and Meadow.
All right. Welcome to our meeting, and maybe one day you'll be sitting up here with us as well. Okay? Thank you. Okay, next we will go to the Citizens Forum. At this time, I would like to call up who signed up for the Citizens Forum, Mr. Northrop. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. The town continues to support, This town continues to ignore two elements of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. First, my rights to free speech have been trampled upon. Beginning in January of 2010, this council passed a ridiculous ordinance against my protests. Then a deal was worked out between myself and town attorney Alan Ferguson. That agreement was quickly and unilaterally rescinded by Mayor Cordova's then fair-haired boy, Daniel Miera. Side code enforcement came after me, often taking my signs without writing a ticket or even generating any paperwork, basically just stealing them. At some point, the Taos police were brought in to assist code enforcement. Many months later, the police would seize the signs independent of code enforcement, often directed by Abigail Adami from her town hall office. Last spring, after the town got kicked around in Taos Municipal Court by the honest judge Eugene Sanchez, I had a brief reprieve. But then the contract town attorney David Romero of Las Vegas, New Mexico, enlisted the New Mexico Department of Transportation to hassle me, but they too shortly backed off, presumably realizing the faulty nature of their sign regulations and right-of-way definitions. The town finally threw in the towel when the 8th District Court appointed local attorney Kirsten Edwards to hear my cases. Judge Edwards basically laughed at the tickets filed by the Taos Police Department against me and prosecuted by town attorney Brian James. Then, within a few days, the town said they would drop the many other outstanding police department and code enforcement citations against me, return the over 100 signs and step stools from the evidence room, and rewrite the sign code. Through all these confrontations, I continued to picket and deal with the courts. I was usually treated like a piece of garbage by code enforcement, but with respect by the Taos Police Department. But then a new twist by the town of allowing, even encouraging, vigilantes to pursue my signs and myself have allowed my friends and family to convince me to stop picketing. I've not been out in 5 weeks. Amos Khan and his associates, or anyone else for that matter, are free to roam the streets and pick up my property and even run me down with their vehicle if it suits them. The town attorney, Brian James, has told the police that my picketing property is basically trash, rubbish, and abandoned. Over an 8-day period ending 2 days ago, I had 4 separate instances of my signs and or step stools being stolen from in front of Southside Copies. Last year, a punk admitted to Taos police officer Austin Barnes that he threatened me with a rifle, but nothing was done then. Nothing was done either to prosecute that offense. Me and my property are fair game for the lawless individuals. While I've always recognized the threat of violence hanging over myself, my employees, and my business, the town's support of violent vigilantes has led me to suspend my political protest everywhere except in front of Southside Copies, and I will be lessening that as well. The Taos Police Department and the municipal courts are powerless to deal with our corrupt government, powerless to protect me and mine from the unleashed and empowered vigilantes. Free speech has been abandoned. The second and final issue is the town continues to financially support the Taos Fiestas, an event that intertwines the Catholic religion with town history and tradition. The town provides $15,000 in direct financial support, along with many hundreds of hours of town employees' overtime pay to support the fiestas. The Fiesta Council President, Joe Quintana, will not allow me to look at the Fiesta books, even though he had promised to on 3 or 4 occasions. The Friday night Fiesta bus tour by several dozen elite now wheels into Casa Las Cordovas for drinking and partying, presumably at the cost of the Fiesta Council. The mayor's family is paid to play at the events on Sunday evening. The Establishment Clause of the First Amendment clearly prohibits governments from supporting and encouraging religion, particularly one religion over all other. Government support of this event is illegal and must stop. Any questions?
Okay. Anyone else like to speak under the Citizens Forum at this time? Seeing none, I will close the citizens forum and move on with the agenda. Item 8A, update by Holy Cross Hospital. I'd like to welcome CEO Peter Hofstetter of Holy Cross Hospital and board member, I'm at a blank, Ron Burnham. Ron Burnham. Thank you, Ron, for coming here, and thank you, Peter.
Ron's the chair.
Yeah, I always have some of those blank moments sometimes. Welcome to our meeting, and you have an update for us on the funding.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could just open by taking the opportunity to publicly thank you and the council for your resolution of support when we were here back in December. As you know, and that was in reference to the sole community provider funding. As you know, the county did certify $1.5 million in January to that fund, and that's going to give us a little breathing room here for the next year to kind of see where the future of healthcare might take us. But we also committed at that meeting that we would be back here on some kind of a regular basis to provide you with an update on what's going on at the hospital, and we'll keep that short and be happy to answer any questions, but I'll turn that over to Peter Hofstetter for the details.
Great. Thanks. We purposely did not put a PowerPoint together or anything. We figured we'd just have a conversation and allow things to be rather informal. What I'd like to do is spend a couple of minutes and just talk to you about the whole funding issue, and then give you an update on some of what I think are some very exciting things that are happening at the hospital. I think the first thing to remind folks are, in spite of the newspaper and all of the talk of the issues with the county and all that funding stuff, the hospital does remain sound. That we have money in the bank. We have no debt. We've been debt-free for about 3 or 4 years. We had a small debt that was done for some renovations we did in 2005. So we are debt-free, and which is a good news. The whole funding issue, without trying to get too complex on the silliness, the way every state does a different way of funding for what they call indigent fund or uncompensated care. New Mexico started in the early 90s with the sole community funding with the indigent fund, and then a few years ago added what they call a supplemental fund. And in simple terms, the way the state set it up is each county is allowed gross receipts tax. Specifically for health care, that gross receipts tax is to be used for indigent funding. Those funds are then matched by the federal government, and then those are the funds that are used for indigent funding. We have seen a rather steep decrease of about $7 million in the last 3.5 years in that indigent funding. At the peak, we got a little over $9 million in indigent funding. That includes the county plus the federal match. This year we would get $2.2 million. So those are just real dollars, and that has really been the issue. We've had a series of conversations for over 3 years with the county because we all sort of saw this coming. There are 28 other hospitals in the state that participate in this sole community indigent funding. So this is not a unique Holy Cross Hospital issue. It is a statewide issue. Where we are right now is in, frankly, a little bit of suspended animation. The state is in the middle of a federal audit on indigent funding. That is an audit that goes back to 2001, and so they have suspended all payments in the whole program. So right now, we have seen no money for indigent or sole community funding. In fact, they owe us a little over $1 million, and they owe each hospital some percentage of that. This audit started the week before Christmas. They said it would be settled in a couple of weeks, and here it is in April, and the email I got today said they hope in 2 weeks to settle it. But the interesting thing about all of that is that not only has it held up the current funds, but it has suspended the funds that the county has generously confirmed for the next fiscal year, which would start in July. And then while the state and the feds sort of figure out what formula they want, that formula is also the formula that will be used beginning in January for the Medicaid overhaul, if you will, for Centennial Care. I don't know how much you've heard about that, and I won't bore you with that at this point, but the state has asked for a waiver so that they have more flexibility in how they administer Medicaid. So all of those formulas are tied up in this whole indigent fund. At the same time, we expect a rather large increase in Medicaid enrollment coming October 1st in preparation to meet the Accountable Care, Obamacare rules coming in January. So basically we're living in a world of we're not sure what to do. It's been sort of an interesting place. The state is committed. They have said very loudly they're committed to funding indigent and soul community. They're specifically have mentioned small rural hospitals because we make up the majority of the hospitals in the state and the access. So we just sort of have to play out the next probably month or 6 weeks to figure out where this all goes, and then we'll figure out sort of what comes next. We have been told, as have all the hospitals, that there will be less money in the bucket. What that actually means, we don't know. I'm not sure what base year they'll use and how they'll figure all this out. So that's sort of where we are at this point. We are hopeful that we will end up something in around the $4.5 to $5 million range on a regular basis. The hospital on an annual basis averages a little bit under $10 million. It's about $9.6 million in what we call indigent care, uncompensated care, and bad debt. Those are just real numbers, and that's just it's just a matter of fact of where we live, the county, the demographics, the economics, who has insurance, who doesn't. It has nothing to do with anybody's management or any of those things. That's just folks that come in the door. So getting something in the $4.5 to $5 million range would be pretty much our sweet spot if we can pull that off, and that's our goal. The other thing that started, as I said, a few years ago is a thing called a supplemental fund. And every August we get a notice from the state, and they say we have X amount of money in a leftover budget, and then they allocate that to each of the Soul Community indigent hospitals. In our case, last year they had allocated about $1.4 million. The problem is it's the same federal match kind of thing, so each community has to come up with a certain amount of money, and then you match it. In our case, the county was able to come up with $50,000. We got $150,000, so the rest of that $1.4 million is divvied up among the other hospitals. So part of what we'd like to do, and Ron mentioned that, is we have been going to each of the municipalities. We've already met with Cuesta and Red River. We'll meet with you guys tonight. We meet with Taos Ski Valley next week as well, and see if there's any way within your budgets that you would be willing to put some sort of money to throw into that supplemental fund. I don't know exactly what that fund will be, or if we're even going to be allowed to do that fund, but I know this spring is usually sort of the budget time for folks, and we figured we'd at least make the ask, and then people can do their thing, deliberate any way they want. We've asked each of the small communities for $25,000. I'd love to ask you guys for $100,000. I know it's a big number. Have no idea if it's doable or not, but as I was told a long time ago, when you're raising money, it never hurts to ask, and you go from there. And the intent would be you would make a donation to the county specifically for indigent fund, and then that would all be part of matching funds. So that's something that Oscar and I can talk about at a later date, but I just wanted to at least publicly sort of raise that. So financially, that's where we are. The hospital has, in the last 18 months, 2 years, we've reduced our expenses by 12%, which is about $7 million. That's all the stuff you've read about in the paper with layoffs and just looking at contracts and how we do business. So we're feeling actually like we're in pretty good shape if this Soul Community Indigent Fund doesn't fall apart. We feel like we're set up and ready to go. We've made a huge shift in our business from inpatient to outpatient, which is a national trend. So we're feeling like we're in really pretty good shape, assuming all the federal things happen in the right way. On a positive note, there's a lot of good things that are starting to happen. You'll hopefully see an article in the paper tomorrow, if not, Thursday, if not, hopefully next week. But we were just notified last week that we were named in one of the top 25 hospitals in the United States for ACL replacement, for knees, which is pretty impressive. Wait till you see the list of the other 24. Those numbers come from the numbers of cases we do, clinical complication issues, and cost. So to be rated in one of the top 25 is pretty exciting. We received a national award, which we'll pick up in July in San Diego. It's called an I Award. It's a National Behavioral Health Award, and that's for a flagging system that we created in the emergency room to help identify high utilizer patients so that we can get them social work and some other help instead of sort of being in the ER in a high expense place. So we're pretty excited about those kinds of things. We have met all of the federal stage 1 meaningful use requirements and have received our money for that. That means basically by the end of this month, the hospital will be a complete electronic medical record. All of our physician offices are electronic medical records, and the hospital's owned physician offices, as of last week, began what's called a patient portal. That means you'll be able to log on, make a doctor's appointment, send an email to your doc, look at your bill, look at your records. So some really cool stuff. We have a full-time MD anesthesiologist that joins our anesthetist come first week of May. I've had some great interviews. We've already signed a contract or about to sign a contract with a new general surgeon. We interviewed some pediatricians this week. So there's a lot of really good things that are happening, and I know with all the stuff that's been in the paper lately, it doesn't seem quite that way, but I think there's some incredible stuff. If you look at patient satisfaction, and all those scores have gone up, we're at the highest we've frankly ever been, and so there's a lot of neat stuff, and I know it's been tough to read all the stuff in the paper, but sort of comes with the territory, I guess. Right. So if there's any questions, anything you want to ask, I've talked individually to a number of the council folks, but anything we can answer for you, more than glad to try to do that. We remain here to try to serve as best we can. I think there's, we've completely updated and upgraded the Rural Health Center in Penasco. We work very closely with PMS in the Cuesta Clinic. We're running the clinics in Angel Fire and Cimarron. So I think there's a lot of really exciting things that are happening, frankly.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Peralta, and then we'll Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate very much the information and the updates. I had just a couple of questions. Sure. One, the first one is back to something you just said just a minute ago. Sure. About records. And you said that you would be able to get that information electronically, and this is kind of 180 degrees from something I just heard from your staff last week, and that is that I had to go in for some lab work, and I asked if they could email me my lab results, and they said no, it had to be picked up in person and right. Sign off and all this stuff, and if they did send it to me electronically, they would be fined $2 million or something like that. So I'm kind of glad to hear that, yeah. Because it would be easier, because I never remember to go back and get that stuff. And so
I can tell you the physician offices are ahead of the hospital as far as the ability to do those things. The key is, and the $2 million is sort of there's federal laws for HIPAA, it's what it's called. It's patient protection stuff. And you have to have certain firewalls and protections and make sure it's going to the right places. So it's not easy stuff to do, but we're working towards that. But at the physician offices, you will have access to some of that. So we're getting there.
Okay, great. The other question I had is that back when we visited the last time, which was before the legislative session, and you were proposing to try to get some legislation to help out not only yourselves, but the other 28 right. hospitals in the state that are having issues. And could you bring us up to date? Sure. Exactly what transpired and how that ended up?
I'm not sure if it's a good news or a bad news, but the legislature really didn't pass any health care laws this time other than the health insurance exchange. People are just scratching around trying to figure out how to fill this sole community indigent funding hole. The only law that was passed was not this year, but a year ago, that allowed other municipalities to chip in to the counties. I don't know what the answer is going to be. I do know that in the last month that that there has been conversations from the state and the feds with the counties about, is there a way to divvy up the taxes differently, so they would go, the counties would collect them, but they would go directly to the state, and the state would do the matches. I think the reality is they're trying to figure out a way to not make any payments back for back years, and to keep things like Department of Justice and OIG out of any settlements. So I think they're just trying to figure out what's the best way, recognizing that in New Mexico we have a fairly large uncompensated and indigent population. I mean, it's what the demographics are. So I don't have a direct answer for you. I do know they're looking at every option they can at this point to try to figure out how you can make this thing work.
What was the push, though, to, and I feel that that's what we talked about before, the push was to try to increase the amount of money that the counties could put into the pot in order to match. And wasn't there any consideration given to providing some mechanism by which that can take place?
We were told in very clear terms by the feds not to do anything at this point. So they said, just let us get through the settlement and then we'll go to something else. So I think, to be honest, the CMS, the Medicare, Medicaid folks at the federal level in the state were trying to settle this thing as far under the radar as they could. That's the best I've been told.
Well, just one last comment, and that is that you're also, how should I put it, the word's not coming to me, but, the sequester is also not helping you at all.
There are literally hundreds of billions of dollars of Medicare, Medicaid cuts potentially proposed at the federal level. So I don't know, none of us know what those answers are. And I mean, I could, depending on how long and how much detail you want to get into, there's a fair amount at risk for healthcare in general. And since I'm right in the middle of the baby boomer age, it's a little scary to figure out what's going to, I don't know that my kids are quite ready to take care of me. So, I think you raise all the right questions. And as I tell our employees and the medical staff, I encourage folks to be absolutely as politically active with our, federally elected representatives. They have been very supportive, and there's a couple in Heinrich's office and Udall's office, some very strong healthcare aides that have been. They're very knowledgeable, very supportive, and we just try to feed as much stuff to them and how these things are going to affect New Mexico hospitals, and they've been very supportive. It's just, as you know, Congress is a tough place right now.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ron and Peter, for sharing all this news with us today, and it sounds like you got a lot of positive things happening in the hospital. My wife actually is a registered nurse in the ER, and in the 5 years, I believe she completes 5 years this year, she's seen leaps and bounds of improvements there, so I get a play-by-play action. And
you probably know more of the details than we do.
So she's very happy with all that, and of course that makes me happy because, and what I hear from you is you're all just continues striving to offer better services to our community, and I think that's commendable. But I can't believe, you mean the Taos News isn't writing everything positive? Come on.
Yeah.
There's Matt back there. Yeah. Come on, Matt. Cut him some slack. Give him a break. Let's write some positive things, okay?
We can talk off the record.
Anyway, I just wanted to thank you again,
Sure.
and thank you for your report today.
You get to come to a nice dinner in May for her 5-year anniversary.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Beta.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Peter and Ron. Excellent presentation. For the listening audience, Peter, the match from the federal government is 2-1?
No, it's over 3.
3-1.
During the year we got 3 years ago. I don't remember the dates. It's about 3 years ago. The year we got over $9 million was during when the federal government put the extra stimulus money, and it was 4-1. and now it's down to about 3.1.
3.1 to 1.
And it's money that's sitting on the table.
And with the county stepping to the plate the other day, you anticipate having about $5 million for the upcoming year.
Which is terrific, yeah.
But you really need closer to 9 or 10.
Well, we actually provide over $9 million in care, but to be honest, we've really, I don't think it's appropriate for us to be greedy. I mean, we've really tried to manage the business, and as I said earlier, with the cuts we've made and sort of just the retooling of the business, if we can stay right around that $5 million range, that will give us, I think, a good comfort zone. Now, Councilman Peralta asked the question, if the feds change all the rules in the next, between now and December 31st, then but we'll never go to sleep if we worry about all of those
And things. Peter, it's good to hear that the hospital is sound and has no debt. The town is sound. We have some debt, but asking for $100,000 is pretty tough.
Yep.
I mean, please sit down with our manager and our finance director, but it's going to be tough. In reference to your survey, I did get to see one of your surveys recently, and nice picture of the hospital staff there. My daughter's one of those individuals.
Good.
That's good to see.
The other thing, too, just not to interrupt, but I forgot to say, we are still sitting on a $13 million, $12.7 million USDA loan. And the intent for that was to build 3 buildings. And so our hope is still to be able to do those. 2 of those are buildings for the hospital, for doctors' offices, and we would expand services fairly significantly with oncology services where we could do chemotherapy here in town. We would increase our wound care, which we have a large diabetic population. We would start a new business of occupational health, industrial medicine. So there's a number of those kinds of things that we would look to expand. The 3rd building potentially is for UNM Taos, and they would move all of their health services curriculums on the campus, and that would be their nursing programs and all those things. Plus, the main campus through the medical school has asked for space in that building to create a telemedicine suite as well. So if we can figure out all this sole community indigent funding and be reasonably certain that happens, we'd love to start building buildings. And I think building buildings is not only good for us in creating the campus and doing all those things, but it obviously puts a bunch of folks to work for 12 or 15 months. There's gross receipts tax and all that. So we're trying as hard as we can to try to make this become a reality. The money right now is good until September, middle of September. I don't know the exact date, but it's a really nice loan, and we're pretty excited about that. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we can get all the moving parts in the right places and do that. I think it would be, certainly for our psyches, it would be nice to be able to do something really positive like that, and I think it would be good for the community as well. So,
great. Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Peter, you touched on something. You said you had a USDA loan for some building construction. What are the chances, or let me just step back and say that in the last few years, the county and the schools did somewhere about maybe $90 million worth of work. And I got to say that the majority of that went out of town. Is there anything that you can do as you move forward to try to keep those jobs local? Because you mentioned, it puts people to work.
Right.
Unfortunately, what we've seen in the last few years, it does put people to work, but they're not our people. And so the majority of those jobs went out of town, and that really hurts.
No, it's a great question, and as you might imagine, our board is hypersensitive to making sure we try to keep as much stuff local as we can. We had one building initially that we bid out, and then all the financial stuff sort of happened, and we stopped. In the contractor that we had originally chosen, I think it was 4 or 6 of the subs were all Taos County subs. So we'll just we'll revisit that, but we'll do everything we can to push to keep that stuff local. And I think we had at least one board member suggest that they all incorporate in Taos at least so that we get the gross receipts tax. So we'll look at all those things and do everything we can, because believe me, we want to keep as much local and do as much local as we can.
Thank you.
When you're talking that request that you're asking of the municipalities, including Taos, this is the indigent fund, the supplement, and this
Right.
has a multiplier of 3.4
3.1, yeah.
in matching funds.
Right,
You mentioned Angel Fire.
right.
Have you talked to them about the
They're
city? of
next
Angel?
on our list.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
because even though they're in Colfax County, they do utilize a lot of our services, including Holy Cross
Yeah.
Hospital.
That part of Moreno Valley, yeah, no, that's on our list.
Sure.
The intent was to go to everybody and do an equal opportunity ask,
That's it,
so
yeah.
we weren't leaving anybody out. And in theory, and again, I couldn't even say to you today it's going to absolutely happen, but the way it has happened the last few years is you get the letter in August from the state, and then the funds are, I think you have to certify the funds in September, and nothing is distributed until October. So it's not like there's a big rush. The real intent was just, we know this is budget time for most people, and just to at least have the ask. And frankly, when the county gave us the 1.5 or pledged the 1.5, they did ask, have we asked others? And we said, no, that's on the list. We figured we'd start with you guys who are collecting the gross receipts tax and then go from there. So it's just part of a process.
Oscar?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Peter, just to make sure we, on our side, have all of the possible options for helping out, we had discussed very preliminarily that in lieu maybe of cash, that there's things that the town could do that would benefit the town as well as the hospital, which is a capital improvement project to extend the road to where the new buildings are coming in.
We can talk about all of those things. Yeah, no, and I should say, the town manager and I, we've had a number of conversations, so I don't mean to suggest, we've actually had a number of really good conversations, and I think we all want to go hunting for things as well, and I'd like to do that together. I mean, we're all in this thing together, so the idea is to be successful as a whole.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you all for coming in.
Thanks for having me. The only thing I would say is if this is helpful, if you want, we can, once a quarter, every 6 months, whatever works, more than glad to come and share with you.
Once a quarter is great, just so that we can keep a pulse on one of the most important services in our
Glad
community.
to do it.
I certainly support your overall master plan in making this a regional, which it is already a regional facility, but expanding on those efforts.
That's our hope. Great. Hey,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next we will go to item B, Resolution 1317, disposition of electronics vehicles and other miscellaneous items, consideration and possible approval of the disposition of electronics vehicles, miscellaneous equipment, and materials owned by the town of Taos pursuant to NMSA Section 3542A. Oscar?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what this resolution does is it seeks the council's formal approval to dispose of surplus equipment and materials. All in one resolution, we explained to you that we're going to try to sell everything that we have by auction, all in compliance with state law, and what is not sold then will be disposed of either in the landfill. Well, first we're going to try and send some of this electronic equipment through a proper recycling route, I guess. And then if we can't dispose of it there, then the balance will end up in the landfill. We have in your backup, we didn't give you a detail of all of the condition of all of the equipment. We do have that information. Our finance director is here to provide that if you wish. But we'll make sure that when these items are posted online in our ongoing auction, a platform, I guess what it is, or it's just a electronic platform, that all of the condition of all of that equipment will be disclosed as well, so that people know what it is, what condition it is, does it run, and things like that. Happy to answer any questions you have. Also, our finance director is here to answer any detailed questions you may have about the condition of that material.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
I have one question.
Councilmember Silva?
Just for the viewing audience, where would one go to find these items? I know of two sites, Public Service and GovDeals. Is there anybody or a specific agency we work with?
Mr. Mayor, Council Member Silva, the main thing is on the Taos Gov website, so you can just click to the public surplus. That's the only place that we identify it to go directly to it, because it's all tied into our town's website. So just the Taos Gov website, and then on the, I think, right-hand side, there's public surplus, and it'll direct you directly to there. And if they have any questions, they can call the finance department to have somebody set up. If they want, if they want to bid on something, somebody's new, they can just call the finance department, and Sharon will walk them through to set up themselves as a auctioneer person to bid on anything that's in there.
Now, you may have noticed that it got a little thin over the last, course of the year, something like that. And so with this list, you'll see that things are offered on that website to be recharged, a lot more stuff to be on there.
Good. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Marietta, I would highly recommend that we coordinate with Oscar and Steve Kennebeck, who is now administering the advertising contracts, so that we could include this in our public announcements.
Okay.
In all media, in all the media, the newspaper. I think it behooves the constituents to know about these potentially good deals.
Okay.
Okay.
Will do.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, next, what is the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to item C, consideration approval of a $100,000 contract with the Housing Trust to conduct the pre-development services for the Affordable Housing Artists Development Project. The total contract will be paid from a $50,000 grant from the National Endowment for the Arts with a $50,000 match from the town's Affordable Housing Fund. This is the grant that we received from Art Space, as it relates to Art Space.
Yes.
With the $50,000 match from the town. Oscar?
Yes, sir. This is an item that has been moving through the process now for about a year. Last year in the budget, you put aside some money and directed staff to apply for this grant. The staff applied. We received the grant, and then we shared with you the draft RFP so that we could get input from you. And the direction we got from the council was that it not be just a study, but rather it also include the participation of a developer who would give us a plan, as well as maybe even the facility, if you will, to attract the capital and make this plan be put in motion through the private sector. And so that's what this project does. We put it out for bids after we got your input. We put it out for bids in January. It closed in February. Working with the team of staff to review the proposals. We received 3 proposals. 2 were complete proposals. We also invited the representative from the Municipal Finance Authority, Mr. Montoya, and the firm, the Housing Trust group was selected, and we're recommending them here to you to receive the contract, or for us to get into a contract with them for them to do this study. There is some local participation. The Housing Trust is a state organization, or a state-wide organization, but they are working with some local team members, including Mr. Mike Dempsey and Mark Yarovitz. And so our expectation is that after they look at the local market, look at the assets the town has available or might have available to put into play, so to attract private investment, then we would come back to you sometime in the fall with a recommendation to take the next step. Now, in between now and then, one of the things that we would do as well is that we would bring to you an ordinance that would allow us to take action that would be recommended, generally recommended in the study. So here we have it. We recommend approval.
Councilmember Peralta.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Oscar, do they provide any kind of a brochure that gives their background and the type of work that they do, just for background information?
Yes, sir. Actually, I have the proposal here. We could post it online.
Even just a simple not necessarily post that whole thing online, but if they had just something simple that says,
Sure.
here's the type of work we do all over the state in housing, and
Sure.
they're kind of their expertise.
Sure, I'll circulate that. And just from the information they provided to us about the work that they've done, this is very much in line with what we're talking about, working with a lot of rural communities and sometimes very small projects, which are pretty difficult to get going. And so they were deemed the best proposal based on that experience. I'm glad to circulate that as well.
Okay, what is the pleasure of the council?
One more question.
Councilmember Silla.
Oscar, I know that Matt Foster was deeply involved in this, and he's no longer with us. So, who from staff is going to be administering or watching over this entire project?
Myself.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
You're acting planning director.
Okay. Oscar, on that note, I know that former Senator Bingaman was a strong advocate for this project and seeing the bigger picture come to fruition here in Taos. Do you know if any of our federal delegation are aware of this, that we're doing this, and maybe a call to our field representatives with Senator Udall's office, Halkis Ortiz, maybe just to keep her in the loop as to what we're doing.
You bet. I'll make sure and close the loop with them.
Yeah. Okay.
And inform them that what's going on, and I'll also ask if they want to be sort of kept abreast of the steps that we go forward as we go forward.
And how does this complement anything that they're doing on this issue? Or, I would hope that they didn't drop this initiative since it was a big thing that Senator Bingaman was supporting. So.
Yes, I'll make sure that they're in the loop.
Okay.
And we keep them apprised of any progress all along the way.
All right. Any other comments, questions? If not, what is the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to item D, PowerPoint presentation on the results of the morale survey conducted in January 2013. Council members, I think this is something that we initiated probably about a year ago, and then when we got the manager on board, he picked up where many of these the survey had left off. So I'm anxious to see the results.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, you recall back in November when we had a review of the performance of the Human Resources Department that our director, Loretta Trujillo, pointed out to you that among the concerns, among the issues that she was watching was morale among the employees, and that just based on anecdotal evidence, anecdotal information that she had at that time only, that we should be concerned about morale. The council noted it, and I committed to you that to undertake a survey so that we could bring back to you information about whether or not morale was low and why it was low and in what respects was it low. So what I did then is I formed an employee committee. It's a rather large employee committee, some 20, we didn't have consistent participation, but it was about 20 people that were appointed to the committee. Some people self-appointed, which I invited. We had department directors, mid-level managers, and then first-line employees. Working with them, we developed a survey where we asked a number of questions, including just basic information that we asked of them, or basic information on the demographics of the employees. We asked them how they felt about where they work and the kinds of things that make the most difference. And then we launched that survey.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So if I'm to understand you correctly, you basically surveyed about 10% of the entire employee pool.
No, sir. We formed a committee.
Okay.
That then worked with me to develop a survey, and then we surveyed everyone.
Gotcha.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear. Yeah, I worked with the committee to do the survey, and then with them also to circulate the survey among the employees.
Thank you.
And then we executed that survey on January 15th, 16th. Representatives from that committee were the ones who proctored the survey. We asked people their basic age just to get a sense of who it was that was responding. Not too the information was not too precise, so we wouldn't get people to back off and giving us the information. Just basic stuff like age, tenure, wages. And then we asked them different questions trying to get at the question of morale. We didn't assume that everyone understood what morale was, so we asked 4 different questions about what morale was. And then we asked, after that, we asked the employees to rank the things that they felt made the most difference in how they felt where they worked. And so the general conclusion that we got back is that whereas there are some aspects of morale that is low, the general integrity of the organization is pretty sound. In other words, that people still feel good about their employer generally. They still think that they can still work together as a team. They come together to get the job done. But still, there are some aspects of the employee morale that is lagging, and I'll share that information with you here. Among the 4 questions that we asked, all related to morale, we asked them, do you have a high regard for your employee, for your employer? And we found there that the great majority, some 60% of the people either agreed strongly or just straight ahead just agreed with that question, which made us feel at least, well, people think highly of the place that they work. The people in that who answered that question, who felt the worst, who gave us the lowest answers, were people who primarily work with internal customers. In other words, employees who work with other employees. The people who felt the best, who gave us the best response, in other words, felt the highest regard for the town of Taos as their employer, were people who were making $25,000 or less. So the lower paid employees felt the best about the town as their employer, and those employees who felt the worst about had the lowest regard were people who work primarily with internal customers. We also asked them, do you think that the town is fair to you as an employer? And what we found there was sort of down the road, not quite 50% of the people there either agreed or strongly agreed with that question. Whereas the people who disagreed or gave no preference were less than 40% of that group. We just felt that we didn't get a strong indication one way or the other here. But of the people who felt the worst about the town treating them as being a fair employer, the employees who work, again, primarily with internal customers, the ones that felt the worst about this. And the employees who felt the best about the town being a fair employer were employees who had been with the town for 2 years or less, and also employees who work with external customers. The other question we asked them was, do you think your employer values your work as much as it should? And there we got a pretty clear indication that a number of employees, a strong part of the employee base, feels that no, the town maybe is not valuing what I do well enough. I'll talk to you a little bit later in my presentation about why we think that happened. But of the people who felt the best or the worst, if you will, about being treated fairly by the town, are those people who make $50,000 or more. Those are sort of the people who felt that the town is treating them less fair. The people who also, again, the people who felt the worst are people who have primarily internal customers, not external customers. The people who felt the best about the town valuing their work properly are, again, people who made less than $25,000 and who work with external customers and who do not have a set schedule of Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. So they work outside that. The last question we asked in terms of morale was, do you think that you still the morale is still at a point where you pull together and get the job done? Is there much disintegration in terms of the organization at that level? And what we found there pretty strongly, people feel that yes, they still pull together, they still work as a team, and they get the job done. Again, the people who felt the worst in this category are employees who were about in the 35,000 to 50,000 range. Again, those who work with internal customers. Those who felt the best are the people who have worked more than 15 years. In other words, that they have some time invested in the organization and are protective about that, about their organization. So in general, the employees who felt, you could say in very general terms, who have the highest morale at this point are the employees who have just started work 2 years or less, or 15 years or more, and who have contact with external customers. Those who are having the biggest morale issues are people who work primarily with internal customers and don't get much contact with the outside. So the next thing that, as I mentioned to you, that we asked them was, well, what things do you think make the most difference? We asked this question so that it would give us an idea about what to do then about how they felt. And what we saw was pretty consistently, and we checked it different ways, and the order might change differently depending on how we sorted the responses. But generally, these top 5 were unquestionably the top 5 things that made the most difference. Now, I will just disclose here that benefits was the first question on the survey, and inevitably the first question always gets a lot of responses. But if there's any doubt as to whether or not remuneration is a big factor, you can see there that right after benefits, wages is the number 2 biggest indications. So we felt that those are the things that are making the most difference to them. Now, being appreciated, job issues of job security, and then just relations with their coworkers were the 3, 4, and 5 biggest reasons that kept down their morale. Now, based on this, I would make to use some very pointed recommendations. And that is the idea of just a cost of living increase. In other words, would you pay everybody the same without regard to how good a job they're doing, or without regard to pay inequities that people may be perceiving in the workplace? In my opinion, won't get you a lot of return in terms of higher morale. The idea that if you think you're doing more work than your coworker, and you guys get just the same increase, doesn't necessarily make the person who thinks that they're doing more work feel any better that both of them got the same increase. So you don't have the big impact there. I think that is very instructive for any kind of pay package that we would bring forward. At some point, what I would tell you is that at some point that points to some kind of a performance-based pay, to where you're paid to do more versus just sort of a cost of living increase across the board. We also think we need to do a better job at doing performance evaluations in order that employees hear from their supervisors, that their supervisors understand how hard they're working and that they're doing a good job. There was also a lot of concern about, and there is a big concern about, job descriptions falling out of date. You have a lot of people who complain now that what they were hired to do over the years has changed substantially. They do a lot more work. They do a lot of stuff that was not part of their job description. They're doing it anyway, and that we feel is the kinds of things that is something that's very significant, is drawing down morale. Better communication with the employees. There was a lot of complaints that the department heads don't communicate well enough with the rank and file, or even middle management, about what's happening, what's coming next, et cetera. And a lot of the information they get from the newspaper or from outside sources. Also, we just think that better training for managers and supervisors on dealing with our employees. So based on this, what I do want to tell you is that as we're developing the budget, at this point we don't know exactly what the bottom line is. No way do I have a good handle on how many dollars are going to be available to address any of this. But I would tell you that what I'm looking for is a way to be able to bring to you a multi-year compensation package, where the first year we address pay inequities that are internal. And I'll give you some examples. For example, we have mixed now or combined now waterworks with the public works, the street yard, for example. And what we're finding there is that as our public works director is trying to cross-train and get people to not pull sides, if you will, based on if they're with water or with public works, we're finding that as they're asked to do different kinds of jobs, that what one is paid for doing the same job is very different. And so we do have complaints, consistent complaints about people from public works saying, look, I'm being asked to do now work from the waterworks side, and they get paid significantly more than what we get paid here. Likewise, the guy from waterworks is now doing the same work that I do in public works and is getting paid more. So we have those kinds of inequities. Again, also over the years, and I think it is normal for organizations that this happens to organizations. The people who were 5 years ago doing one thing exhibited more ability, maybe more energy, and as a result were saddled with more work, and now they do more work. And meanwhile, people who started out with them at the same time are doing less work, and they're basically being paid the same. So for somebody like that to give them a cost of living increase across the board doesn't address what bothers them over time a lot. So what I would be recommending, I'd like to come to you with a package, and I'd like to hear what you think about this, is a package that the first year addresses these pay inequities. So we would set aside some resources, do a study, bring it back to the council, and then you would accept or not or modify the findings of that study, and then use the resources that we put aside to address those types of inequities. And then the following year that there would be just a straight ahead cost of living increase of some kind. And then the third year, from then on, that there would only be pay for performance, no longer a cost of living increase, but rather people would be paid for a job being well done. So in some cases, you'd have some people being paid a significantly higher amount than an average, and then some people would get nothing because they did not meet their performance plans. And for that reason, we would have to be doing a better job of evaluating employees. And we think that in 2 years, we should at the very least be at that point so that we can equitably and transparently put in place a pay for performance plan. So that's our thinking at this point. Those are our recommendations for addressing employee morale. So just to summarize, whereas there is some lag in some areas of employee morale, the organization is still very sound. People still work together. They still think well of the town as an employer. Stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Oscar. I just want to let everyone know that all the employees that as mayor of the town of Taos, I certainly appreciate the employees. And as a leader of any organization, you're only as good as the employees that are with you. And I got to say that the town of Taos employees are stellar. They're professional. And I enjoy working with them in my capacity as mayor. In 2009, since 2009, I was concerned, about some outcry of there may be some concerns that what can we do better, or that there is a morale problem, and so I asked for this because we want to know what are we doing right and where are areas that we can improve, and I've always said leadership starts from the top, and what can we do as policymakers, although we don't interact with the employees directly. Sometimes our policies and sometimes the direction of council may affect how employees feel. So that is what this morale survey was intended to do, to get input firsthand to see how we can improve the working conditions. Of course, not all the time can you satisfy everyone, and I'm a firm believer that throwing money is not a way to fix the problem either. I know that that's a big concern, better wages. I think everybody wants that. But I think creating a good work environment that allows for that advancement of employees in their respective departments. Now, I know we've had to cut significantly positions, and as people leave the town of Taos for perhaps better job opportunities, retirement, we've been in a habit now of, because of the economy, of consolidation and doing more with less. And to those departments that have clearly done that, I sincerely appreciate them for doing that. You have shown that we can pick up the pieces and really unite and multitask, and that may call for re-identifying what those job descriptions are, and reassessing what is the classification, what is the pay classification, because pay and classifications, we do that, but it's a working document. It's a living document that we need to continually update. So on behalf of myself, I certainly want to just extend my sincere appreciation to all the employees, especially those that have participated in this survey. Council members?
I do have a few things, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Silva.
Oscar, one of the things I think that is important, and you mentioned that we're down the public works, is cross-training. I think that we need to instill in our employees that cross-training is very important. And by learning other duties, other tasks, they become a more valuable employee to the organization. And therefore, I think that those people, because of their value, should then get compensated more. And I think what would happen there is that you start to it'll just grow, and it just becomes just part of what it is to work the town of Taos, is that you may not just have one job description. It may be multiple things that you do, and I think that something like that is important for the town of Taos to cross-train.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. And in public works, we're getting good leadership, and I think good acceptance of that idea. There are some barriers there where a heavy equipment operator on two sides, with about the same experience, as you cross-train, one is paid 10-20% more than the other for doing the exact same sort of job, and so there are those barriers. And anyway, that's what I identified as a thing that we may want to address first as a compensation program coming forward, because to just do a cost of living, whatever resources are there, if you just pay them both, give them the same raise, you still have that barrier. And so sometimes in these cases, those pay structures or imbalances, inequities, do get in the way of cross-training.
Sure. Councilmember Peralta.
Oscar, I guess as part of the program, going back to what Councilmember Silva was indicating, when you have an individual, you ask them to do more and they're willing to do that, or they are if they can see that there's a reward for that. And so my thought was that maybe as part of this program in recreating the job descriptions, that you have a ladder that says if you take on this other duty and you perform it well, then you will get an automatic increase to equity, within the position, and then, and you go along with that. That's how you would build the pay for performance rather than across the board cost of living increases. It also gives you an opportunity then for employees then to look at other aspects that they can improve, so that they're not saying, well, I can't do any more in my job description, I'm maxed out. It gives them that opportunity to look someplace else without necessarily changing the job that they're doing.
Right.
So I appreciate the look at that, and I think it's very good for the employees. And we do have good employees. We have people that really like doing the work that they do, and they support the town and the citizens very well, and we all appreciate that. But we also have to look at how we then go back to them and say thank you for a job well done, and show that thanks in a way that supports their families just as they're supporting our citizens.
You bet. What you describe, Councilman, is actually best practice these days for job descriptions, as opposed to these tight job descriptions that quickly get outdated. You have what's called broad bands. So the employee can go through a whole career progressing and never really getting to the very end of that broadband. Each time realizing that if they take on more, then they will be compensated for more. You bet. We will look at that, and anyway, as we identify if there's resources or not to take that first step, you bet we'll be looking at it this way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Oscar. I'm looking at your slide on general conclusion, and you talk about morale is suffering from employees' perception that work is not valued fairly. Mm-hmm. And I think that value fairly ties to a couple of things. One, maybe a lot of our employees want performance-based pay. And sometimes they may want performance-based pay because they see other employees that aren't pulling their fair share. And to me, an employee that's not pulling their fair share, that is a leadership problem where leaders, directors, supervisors need to hold people accountable. And it's interesting that your recommendations also say that we need more supervisor training. We may have some young supervisors that aren't trained to be supervisors, and it's our job to train them. Another reason could be, in the hard economic times over the last several years, we have not been able to give our employees a pay raise, whether that was a cost of living adjustment. I mean, it's been really tough times. And when individual town employees talk to me one-on-one, I always tell them, things could be worse. You could be reduction in force, you could be laid off, you could be without a job. There's a lot of people without a job, so it's always better to look at the glass as half full instead of half empty, So these are hard times. I am fully committed to trying to go to a plan that is performance-based. I have no problem with that. I'm fully committed to the end-of-year benefit. 10 years ago, as a first-time counselor, I'm the one that spearheaded the start of the end-of-year benefit. People really like that right around Christmas time. It's a shot in the arm. It's great. Last year, we had to suspend it. We couldn't do it. It was hard, but we all got to come together. 10 years ago, Public Works and Public Utilities were one department under one director. We made them two directors. There was a wall between the directorships. This department became territorial. This department became territorial. And now Mr. Espinosa has the big challenge of getting these guys to think outside the box and come back together as a team. Councilor Silva calls it cross-utilization training. But overarching that is you're a team. Public Works / Public Utilities. You are one team, and if the director needs you to be certified in A, B, C, and D tasks, you need to be. And the more certified you are in many tasks, the more valuable you are to the organization, just as Councilmember Silva stated. So we really got to evaluate where we're at. We're in a hard economy. Dollars are tight. We saw Peter Hofstadter tonight from the hospital ask the town for $100,000, and I was just like, my God, where are we going to do that, I'm blessed. I think anybody in the town that has a job is blessed. And isn't it interesting, folks, that employees, young, tenured employees that were making $25,000 or less were relatively with good morale. But yet employees that were making $50,000 or more were where you had more major morale problems. I mean, it's a privilege to work for the town of Town. It's not an entitlement. It's not a guarantee. Several years ago, Councilmember Cordova then and I pushed hard to make all town employees classified. We did it. Recently, we found out, unfortunately, that we had violated state law, and they're all at will. Well, guess what? I always had a motto in the Air Force that if you're doing your job, you have nothing to worry about. If you're performing, you have nothing to worry about. So that's where it's at. But we'll work hard to see what we can do, but I'm not going to make any promises. They're hard times. We all got to work together and get it done.
Councilman, I would just share with you, as along the lines of what you're saying here, that employees who have 2 or fewer years with the town are the ones that felt the best about the value that the
and guess what, Oscar? That ties
gives
to the fact that those employees with 2 years or less with the town, they're just happy to have a job. They're blessed to have a job. And as we become more set in a job over time, it's very easy. Human element, number one, we resist change, merging two departments. And number two, we could potentially become complacent.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you got to keep pushing yourself to take it to the next level.
Yeah. Now, to be fair to the people who are 50,000 and above, that's mostly the department heads, and it could very well be that they're the ones that get the most exposure to that pushy new town manager that's around these days.
Well, and Oscar, you say it jokingly, but I call it accountability. And there has to be accountability, and all 16 directors have to perform. Yeah. If they're not performing, and the town manager holds them accountable, and if 3, 4, or 5 of them choose to leave, then so be it. They'll get replaced with someone that's very capable of doing the job.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say one last thing, in that I'd like to echo the mayor's comments in that, we have some exceptional employees. They're great people, good, hardworking people, and I'm honored to serve as a councilman while they're working at the town test, and I like to just say I enjoy working alongside of them, and we're just trying our best to make their jobs better and easier, and I just want to just say again that we truly appreciate you.
Thank you. And I just want to close with, along these same lines that we've heard from the council members. Many of the departments that, and the survey results indicate that the internal, the ones that have internal customers which deal with employees, I can see how that may create some, am I appreciated, am I valued? Because clearly, our kudos as policymakers go to the stuff that rise to the policy level. And that is a lot with police department. When we get complaints and the police resolves an issue, well, there's pats on the back. Thank you for addressing this issue. Public Works, when there's issues that are going on. But yet the buildings department are working hard all day long resolving issues. And they don't get those pats on the backs because they potentially didn't, or, unplugging sewer lines, or, dealing with Public Works issues that are a lot of work, hard work. The clerk's department, resolving issues, complaints from individuals, that perhaps aren't as polite as they should be, and they deal with it in a very professional manner. And I receive kudos from the clerk's office all the time. So that in turn prompts me to write an email, thank you, kudos to the clerk's office. But HR that doesn't deal with, there's some hardworking individuals, finance that doesn't deal specifically with outside customers, but more internal, are working hard, and that doesn't mean it doesn't go unnoticed. It just doesn't rise to the policy level. And sincerely, I just want to express my gratitude to all the employees that are working deeply in the trenches. The library is another one that many of the employees there don't get the acknowledgement that they deserve. So I can certainly see why that they would feel that they're not appreciated. And I just want to express my appreciation as mayor of the town of Taos.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Abito.
I'd like to make a final comment too. I believe that 90 to 95% of our employees are solid. They're committed, they're dedicated, and could we pay them, yes, better? Absolutely, yes, but in hard times, it's hard to do that. I also believe that we have a small amount of employees that through gossip and conversation bring morale down by spreading rumors and bad words, and so that's what I'm talking about. But I as a counselor have fought hard for end of year, for classification, for promotion, but I'm also a realist, and we have to realize that we're in hard times, and we can only do so much. But I do believe that we have excellent Town of Taos employees that do a superb job.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you. Once again, thanks to all the employees for this survey results. All right, we will go down next on the agenda. IT department review, which is another department that works hard behind the scenes and doesn't have a lot of exposure to outside customers. So, Ruben, welcome to our meeting, and we look forward to your review here, your PowerPoint presentation.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Silva.
This says that Mr. George is going to, Jaramillo is supposed to be giving a presentation. I'm just messing around.
Real quickly, Mr. Mayor, I'm here in the place of our assistant town manager, Abigail Adame, who was ill today. She's the person that takes the point to try and to work with the departments to get you these presentations. And so I'm here in her stead. Real quickly, our big focus with IT is probably shared with all management across across the board, whether public sector or not. And that is how can we make IT an organization, keep it an organization that anticipates problems, gets ahead of problems, and if you will, almost is perhaps the most invisible of all, so that they're not chasing emergencies or being pushed by emergencies. And so anyway, that has been a big focus that we've been trying to place on this organization. And so with that, I'll turn over the presentation to our IT director, Ruben
Thank
Martinez.
you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and youth council member. Our duties and responsibilities within the IT department, break down into network security, and you know how important that is.
Click here. No.
If you don't have firewalls and antivirus or anything like that, well, that's the biggest problem. The next one is network maintenance. The hard drives, the hardware that's there, if you don't keep that up, then your connections are gone. Backup and recovery of data. Some people inadvertently delete something. We have to recover it for them, or we have to go back to tapes and get all that data for them. So we try to do the best we can. We're forward and backward compatible on that, so that 10 years down the line, we should be able to recover any data that somebody needs to look at. We maintain and upgrade software constantly. There's all the upgrades for the Microsoft operating systems, and as well as the systems that we have contractors working with us on. We update and maintenance our websites constantly to keep the public informed, to help them pay online, and just give them as much information as you want us to give them to keep them up to date. We do our telephone system administration, which has been with us for quite a few years, and we're continually upgrading systems. We maintain databases. Those are essential. Police department, landfill, finance. We need those to be up to date and working for our people. Otherwise, they can't do their job. And then there's the special projects, the projects that come up and they're surprises or they need special attention. We need to reconfigure something. It takes a lot of planning and coordination with not only our staff, but department heads. We are a staff of 3.
I just have one question right now.
Okay.
What's the score?
Since you know everything, what is the score?
He's waiting on a basketball.
In other words, hurry up.
Yeah. Okay.
Is Louisville up or down?
You could check from your IT there.
Yeah. It's right in front of you. You can look it up. There's 3 of us that are full-time employees, myself, our systems administrator, our information technology 2-person. We work with a budget of $288,955. This is something that changed from last year because now our budget includes salaries. 36% of it is our operating budget, and 64% of it is salaries.
So Oscar, just as a note for the listening audience, we spend probably about the same amount, slightly more on IT than we do on 911.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Just to put it into perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a Microsoft environment, so our servers and computers are Microsoft. We have 23 servers, 187 computers, 3 firewalls, 1 failover generator, which has helped us a lot in many ways. We have dual failovers on our air conditioning system, which was a problem a few years back. We had the filters get dirty, and we had some other issues that were hardware related. Our air conditioning went out, and we don't have too many doors in the IT department. So we had to open windows and put a lot of fans. We've gone around that, and we have a backup so that at least we'll have a system on while the other one's being repaired. We have our websites. Oops. Our websites, which are 5 websites with 200 pages that we maintain constantly. Our back end is covered by fiber optics and Ethernet, and the fiber optics goes between all of our buildings with the exception of the Youth and Family Center and Public Works, which is wireless radio that connects them. Our phone system is a voice over IP system that we've had for a few years.
Mr. Mayor, actually remembering that this does not include our capital expenditures in IT. So indeed, we spend considerably more in IT than we do in 911.
Yeah, when we're down, nobody's working. So we have to keep it up all the time. Our level of service is our help desk response system. Emergencies are immediate. especially police. Day or night, we get a call like that for that kind of a system. And for our high emergency calls or our high rating calls, we answer to those within an hour. Usually it's somebody that's down. Normal calls, we answer those within 24 hours that day or early the next morning. And then our low rated calls, we work on them within 7 working days. Our websites, like I said, were 200 pages. We monitor the number of visits to the site weekly, and it's impressive where they come from. Not all of them are here from the town of Taos, but from outside the United States and the far reaches of the world, just to see what's going on in Taos. We post our changes. We either add or remove changes to the website within 1 or 2 days. Anything that we have to reconfigure, it takes up to a week sometimes, because we have to reconfigure a page, add all the links and make those work, make sure that they work for our people. We have a fixed assets plan for replacement of computers and servers. The computers, we go on about a 6-year replacement, and we directly advise the departments on the need for replacements. On the servers, we work on about 4 or 5 year replacement plan, and we have to work around compatibility with the software, or are we looking for an upgrade of software that also works with that server? So there's a lot of things that go into play with this. I keep forgetting to press the buttons, but anyway, the network maintenance, we monitor our alarms and error logs. Our alarms come to our devices that we wear with us day and night. So during the night, if we get something, we wake up and we have to get going, we come out and answer that call. We try to reboot our systems every 2 weeks, because with the new system that we have in finance, we have people that are trying to pay their bills, and if they can't get in, we have to make sure that they're able to access it quickly and pay off their bills. Otherwise, there's a disconnect fee, and we don't want that to happen to them. We do shadow copies of our information for some of our people that during the day you accidentally hit delete or you forget to hit save, and there goes all the information that they worked hours and hours on. We're able to quickly recover that information as close as probably 6 hours old. We do disk-to-disk backups nightly. We do full backups of our tape backups weekly. Our strengths are an integrated work team, and we practice team communication, because if we don't talk about it, all of us end up in one place or trying to redo something that's already been completed. Our weaknesses are the new staff and learning of the network and infrastructure. It always takes a while, and one of the guys that just left us said it took him about 3 years to get comfortable with our system, to where he knew exactly where the problem was if he was called. Well, we have an issue with backing up too much unnecessary data, so what we're working on is a plan that anything that has not been touched in 2 years goes into an archive. It's still available to people, but we're not deleting it off our network, so it's not taking all of our backup time, but it's still available to people that may find it necessary. A low level of technology knowledge by end users is kind of inconvenient, because they call us to come in and do basic stuff for them. So we try to get them more training. We have something working with UNM that has worked well, and they seem very confident that more knowledge to them is more tools. It's almost like money in the bank. The morale comes up with things like that. Threats are uncontrollable power flexing or exposing our networks to failures, and part of that was recently when they were working on Valverde. This was contractors working on it. As they were working, every time they did something to one of the poles, we had flexing, and it caused a lot of issues. So we probably replaced more battery backups this year than we've ever replaced, but on the alternative, we weren't replacing computers. So that was the positive behind that. Our opportunities are Microsoft training at no cost. Because of the kind of contract that we have no cost for training our my staff, but then our staff within the town of Taos can buy software that keeps them up to date at about $20 for ordering the Microsoft Office suite. So they're able to go home, and the kids have it at school. They teach the parents how to work on it. They learn all the cute tricks, and you know how your kids teach you all these things? Well, these kids go home and teach our staff all those tricks, and it's a benefit to us. Cross-training through the support of vendors. Whenever we have a vendor that comes on and is doing something to our system, we monitor, we ask questions, and we try to get to where our staff can do those fixes instead of having to pay for them again. So it's a plus. We're saving money in the long run. Our strategic focus and priorities are project planning, communication with the end users, especially recently with the library. We talked to them. We made a plan for what we were going to do when they did the carpeting. We stayed ahead of the carpenters. We moved our systems out. Then we moved them back in. And we stayed ahead of the carpeting team. We never held them up. And they always had a clear road in front of them. But when they were all done, we were finished also. And they were able to get back to work. Fixed assets tracking program has helped us a lot because we're able to make recommendations for replacements, and then they can budget in their own line items for replacement of computers, backups, monitors, whatever it may be. Prioritizing of the help desk requests and special projects has really been an asset to us. That takes the stress away, but we don't forget those little ones that we kind of put aside because we have to go all the way across town, and that takes a couple of hours sometimes, so that helps us a lot. We don't forget those people that maybe had a low priority on their list, and we'll show up and they say, oh, we thought you forgot about it. Our list of projects and objectives, the project management software plan is working for us because we stay ahead of projects, we plan it out, and we see it as it's coming up in our calendar. Servers and computer replacement plan and developing an asset management plan has worked for us. So we stay ahead of that. We've had issues where some of them are dying out, and we have a replacement already in-house, or if something comes up like now with the 311, we had a device that was available. We didn't have to rush out and buy something that was maybe too large. We were able to immediately get that working. We're looking at a Microsoft Exchange upgrade to allow for greater capacity. We've had issues recently, and it's just in time for the upgrade. Like I said, we're archiving our data that's over 2 years old, so we're no longer backing up the 2 terabytes of data, but we're bringing it down to a manageable amount. We're working on the police and central communications relocation, planning all those out so that as we go forward, everything happens just like magic. Told you that one. I'm open to any questions.
I have a question. What is the what's the total backup capacity that we have?
We have 28 terabytes, but then we have some of it in tapes. We have a lot of it in disc to disc, and some of it we're trying to get out so that we're not backing up 28 terabytes or 19 terabytes, and overnight. It takes like 28.6 hours, I believe, to get all of that backed up.
It takes about an hour for a terabyte. I'm just wondering because my 4 radio stations, 4 radio stations with all the audio files, all the commercials since 2006, I could fit everything in 2 terabytes. I mean, that's audio files. I don't know, what is it that's taking up that data?
We have photos, there's all kinds, there's evidence in our backups, databases.
No question, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we are not very efficient with our use of that space. There's stuff in there that should be deleted. In fact, we've recently come into a problem that some of that stuff is being copied over and over and over and over and over again, just the way people are managing it. We need to do a better job of that, and we will. We'll be hopefully we'll be able to cut that space down quite a bit.
Well, SharePoint's coming in for us anyway, and if we get towards SharePoint, then we're not duplicating. We're able to share it out. If you ask me for something, I can give you permission on it. It'll allow you to see it as long as you need it, and then I can take it away if I need to. So those are things that we're looking at as future growth.
Great. Okay. Any comments, questions? Thank you, Ruben. Oscar, thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
all
much.
the hard work
Thank
you do. Thank you. Next, we will go to matters from the mayor and council, out-of-state travel, consideration and approval of out-of-state travel based on actual expenses for myself to attend the 2013 annual NALEO conference, June 27th through 29th. Council members, I haven't gone to the NALEO conference because of budgetary concerns for probably the last, I believe it's been over
3 years.
3 years, probably 3 years. But I do believe that it's some positive networking with key officials at the federal level, and some of the initiatives that are education, health initiatives that I would like to go to this one. So since there is money in the council set aside budget, and since it wasn't approved during the original budget process, we have to bring it up for this year. So, any comments, questions?
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Any other matters from the council at this time? Just want to let the council know that we had a very positive meeting at the Municipal League District 2 where we got briefed on the various tax issues of the governor and many initiatives that moved forward. One of those that will be of concern that was, I believe, a feel-good policy was the notification of meetings. We have to move it now to 72 hours with no modifications within that 72-hour period, which can be pretty burdensome, especially given the technology that's available. And although there was, I don't think any municipalities that were for it, I don't think anybody was going to come out and say we're against more open and transparency. Certainly we can live with the legislation. I don't see how it helps, but the governor also signed it, and that's something that we now are going to have to post our final agendas 72 hours in advance, and no modifications can be done with that agenda. Other than that, I don't have any matters from the council. Is there any other concerns? If not, what about youth council members? Michael, if you can maybe at the next council meeting, just kind of within your school, just maybe dialogue with some of the principals and students, student body president, as to what initiatives would they like to see the council address.
That's definitely my plan. I'll talk to the principal in the next week.
Yeah, and then maybe set a time with Abigail so that we can set kind of some procedures and rules of engagement, if you will, what we'd like to see out of the, so you could start creating those for the youth council members going forward.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Good night, everyone.
Buenas noches.
To be over the suffering in the world. Even at age 9, I realized that I did not measure up to what God expected of me.